It's my pleasure to be here. It has been quite a long time, so it's good to see some old faces. It's good to see new faces as well. I'm Philippe, she's Sofiia, just in case you had some doubt. Do we have the clicker? Yeah. So, FX risk management, back to basic. There are a few words I would like you to keep in mind right before I start singing my song and doing the consultant stuff. Those one are fragmented data. Thanks, Miriam, you mentioned it. Cash flow forecast. Amazing topic, right? Having a rigid hedging strategy, you know, the one which is there since 10 years. The previous one probably did something on paper and you're still using it. A lack of technology, and I guess this will be covered by the next speaker. And my favorite one, collaboration with the business. Those things are what's not working in your company, right? And I hope I'm wrong, honestly speaking. But each time I'm called by a board, by a CFO, whatever to say, Phil, we still haven't explained a fixed difference. Could you just help me to identify that? Those are the sources, right? Now, this is exactly why we're talking about going back to basics. A small picture of what could be an advanced risk management will be step number one, okay? Then we go back to the risk because some people still get it wrong, right? We'll quickly go through identification and measurement of the risk, and then some hedging strategies, because for those who know me, it's my favorite topic. And I have a question for you, not to be answered now, but to be discussed during the drinks, right? So let's crack on. An advanced FX risk management is the ideal treasury operation built on the foundation model of HSBC, probably. This is where you have a centralized model, you're right. You have payment on behalf, collection on behalf, super netting agreements, all the funny things we all dream to have, or from a consultant point of view, to implement. When you do this, roughly speaking, your FX risk management should be part of it. It's centralized, it's managed there, and it works, right? It's fine. But even if you have this, you still haven't explained FX differences. So, in this room, and this is what I usually start with, is you're probably safe, provided you tick all those boxes. So, foundation, what I call foundation, you have a good governance on how you manage your FX, right? It's reviewed, it's discussed, you have committees, you have everything around. It's fantastic. Your data, thanks Miriam for mentioning it earlier as well. Your data are clean, right? They're accurate, maybe real time even. Collaboration with the business is key. Regular feedback with your peer is encouraged, right? We're gonna talk about your economic risk or your strategic risk. This is where you could challenge it as well. Something that, honestly speaking, I did not find any title, so I called it might be useful, right? But you know what's coming. Is there any new regulation, any new reporting, any new instruments developed by your bankers, right? That things that is good to know. And the cherry on the cake is those policies you have somewhere. They are updated, right? If you have this, you're really great. If not, there are things we can discuss, obviously. So, Sofiia, the risks.
Thank you, Philippe. I think I was brought here to add a bit of school type of mood today, but not to bore you. We speak about the financial risks, and we can actually split them in three categories. Translation one. I come from the accounting advisory, and actually when we speak about translation, it's something which is really impacting your accounting. We have a headquarters here in Luxembourg, our subsidiary in US. And when we prepare consolidated financial statements, and I think that we all know what it is, then we might have some noise on consolidation, but there is no real cash flow. When we speak about the transactional risk, this is actually when we have a transaction with our supplier, with our customers, and that's when we might see the impact in our statement of profit and loss. And economic risk. This is something more global and more strategic one. Then if we are in the country with the stable currency or the currency which is more strengthening, and we are having export strategy, then it might be that we might lose our position on those markets just for the simple and good reason that our currency here locally become more stable and more strong. And knowing all these types of risks is actually gives you this opportunity to find the proper strategy, how to hedge it, whether it's a translation or transaction risk, what instrument to use. Should it be more advanced that Philippe likes, like a hedge accounting, or should it be just balance matching? And on the other hand, when we speak about economical risks, here we will be speaking about more mitigation actions, right? Our pricing strategy and our dynamic pricing strategy that might help us with mitigating those economic risks. And in more advanced now, I go back to Philippe.
Well, more advanced, that's a big word, but fine, we know the risk. So, and you know that probably by heart, but you first start by identifying your open position, right? So how do we do it? Easy. We just make an inventory. We map all the assets, liabilities, transactions, forecasted transactions, budget from time to time, and we put them per currency in a big table, right? That's fine. It's good to categorize those exposure because, as Sofiia explained, you don't hedge transactions like you hedge a foreign investment, obviously, right? And then what I would call sharing the cake is you have a single source of truth, because it's good to have your documentation, because if your business have a different understanding, you know, that's one of the source of the remaining noise, I would say. So you do it, roughly speaking, on paper, super easy. Then you need to measure it. You determine your net open position. There is some debate. Some people just do it on a daily basis, and they dynamically hedge the daily position. They just close it. That's fine. Some others go a bit further, and they say, well, I have exposure now. I have exposure for 3 months, 6 months, whatever. Of course, if you do it on Excel, it becomes quite a heavy table, right? Let's face it. But I do not recognize using Excel. And once you have that table, this is where you start to prepare your scenario, to make your sensitivity analysis, whatever technique you use to see where am I landing, right? And then you compare that with your risk management strategy, your risk appetite, and you decide to hedge or not. Very easy process. What's interesting is the usual suspects, right? Why do things go wrong? Inaccurate forecasts. I think this one is on the list since decades. Ignoring indirect exposure. This one is more strategic, right? What we call indirect exposure is even if everything is in euro, for instance, you may have one provider who is himself provided in US dollar. Any change there will have his price increasing. Okay, so it's more strategic level, but it's something which is usually ignored. Fragmented data sources, we mentioned it. We know we have to do something on that. Lack of cross-functional collaboration, talk to the business, have the business talking to you. That's super clear. Misclassification of exposure and lack of regular update. Roughly speaking, that's the list I mentioned at the beginning, right? But it's really key because this is probably the source of your issues.
We are speaking now about translation risk, and here it's quite clear, right? We have a headquarter, it's in euro, it has a subsidiary, it's in USD. And then what will happen once each time you will see your consolidated financial statement prepared in euro, you will have certain noise in your equity. That's something which we call currency translation reserve, because there are going to be certain volatility which USD will create. How you can actually mitigate it or hedge it is if you would give to your subsidiary some borrowing, also in USD. And if you designate this as a hedge relationship or net investment hedge, then actually those two movements would be offset in the same currency translation reserve in the equity. It sounds quite easy, but not everyone is using that. And also maybe if you say that, okay, that would be in my console, right? Net investment hedge is something which I'm allowed to use in my consolidation. How about my standalone accounts? In the parent standalone accounts, you can use a fair value hedge. Well, we will offset the movement in your investment that you will have at fair value and with the movement of the fair value of your borrowings. So it will also be offset in your profit and loss statements. Opposite to this, transaction one, here it's also way more interesting because we are hitting we are impacting our profit and loss with all these instruments like forwards, swaps. We are having them at fair value, right? Here is an example of quite advanced treasury situation where we have a headquarter, we have a subsidiary, we also have a specific entity which would be our treasury center. And in this particular case, let's imagine that headquarter have a currency, have some supplier in certain currency, then they will transfer this risk through the internal deal to the treasury center, and as a subsidiary would have different transaction, and they will also transfer this risk to their treasury center, and then the treasury center will deal with those risks by engaging into the different money market instruments like forwards or swaps to hedge those risks. What's actually the next step is to use to, let's say, avoid this noise in our profit and loss statement is to use cash flow hedge. So before the transaction took place, we are already having this derivative instrument in our treasury center. But to avoid having the P&L impact, we can also move it to our other comprehensive income, which is more linked to the equity, less impacting our P&L and all our KPIs, and then it will be only neutralized in the P&L when the transaction took place. So we avoid this noise and volatility. Maybe once I still have this chance to speak about financial reporting, you know that in a few years we will also move to a new standards, IFRS 18. And here it's actually very interesting place for the treasurer. Because before, everything which was related to hedging instrument or foreign currency, we used to call it financial result. So it was a bit more lower than operations. But once the new standard will come in place, we actually, maybe it's a time to speak to our businesses, because if your FX originated on your operations or your instrument is used to hedge your primary operation activity, based on the new guidance, it needs to be moved back to operations. So then it's also something to take into account. Maybe also that's something that you need to consider in your decision making in involving certain transaction, and whether it's time to go for hedge accounting or not. I know if it was convincing.
Brilliant, brilliant.
Okay, thank you.
Good. So before moving to the next slide where you will discover the question, right? As a conclusion, roughly speaking, when you get FX wrong, it's because you have the wrong information or you have no information. Just to make it simple, crap in, crap out. Okay? So, question for you is, where are you within your risk management strategy, right? And this one, I'm really happy to discuss it around the drinks. So thank you very much for listening. And I guess we're on time.